Hey, what's up, guys? Today, I'll show you a horror thriller film, Demonic. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins 1 week before the violent slaughter occurs in an abandoned house in Louisiana. John is getting an interview with his girlfriend's brother, Sam, about a vision of his mother inside the abandoned house. John looks confused in the interview as he reveals that he has never been to the abandoned house where his mother appeared. For months, John has had visions of his mother, who is much younger than he is, urging him to let go of something he hasn't yet figured out. Because of that, Sam becomes intrigued by John's partial vision and decides to tell Brian about it. This causes John to walk out because Brian is Michelle's ex-boyfriend and Michelle is currently in a relationship with John. Michelle gives chase after John immediately so that the interview can proceed. But John is already too enraged to keep the discussion going because he discovers Michelle did not tell him that Brian is a part of their plans to visit the abandoned house and look into the source of John's disturbing visions. Because of that, Sam intervenes in John and Michelle's conversation. He tells John that they need Brian, alongside their friends, named Ms. Psychic and Technician, to be the people to evaluate the paranormal aspects. But then, John still sticks to his decision not to join their activity. He reasons that Brian will only use them to make money out of capturing ghosts. Desperate, Sam shares the primary purpose of why they will do the activity, to find out the motive behind the killings in the abandoned house through seance. Because of that, John eventually reconsiders his decision and gives it a try to join them. Returning to the present, a detective received a report call from an older woman about a disturbance at the Livingstone house in Louisiana. He is currently out from work, but since the older woman needs immediate assistance, Detective wastes no time going to the location. Upon his arrival, Detective discovers a car parked outside the Livingstone house. He brings out a flashlight and checks if a person is inside the vehicle, but is empty. So he goes straight inside the house, when suddenly an older man appears and calls him from behind. Detective jumps in shock upon seeing the older man. Due to that, the older man apologizes and immediately reports the blood he found inside the house. Without further ado, Detective enters and examines the gruesome crime scene, where he finds the lifeless body of Ms. Psychic on the floor. He immediately radios the police and requests a backup and emergency medical service at the Livingstone house. Afterward, he checks other areas and finds 2 more lifeless bodies of Technician and another member lying in different rooms. Detective strongly kicks the door to the last room and discovers John's body. But he gets astonished when John, whom he assumes to be dead, abruptly springs up and leaves the room in a state of panic. So Detective immediately chases John and prevents him from running away. Several police cars arrive at the house alongside an ambulance. Then Detective begins working with his fellows to check the series of cameras they found inside the house and figure out what happened during the night. But then it turns out all of the data from the cameras are mixed up and cannot be viewed properly. So Detective lets his fellows recover it, despite knowing it will take some time before it gets fixed. Afterward, Detective goes to the holding room, where John is detained. He asks John the name of their other member, which is also missing alongside the pregnant Michelle. John then answers and says that it is Brian. Due to that, Detective immediately signals the other police to find Brian. Detective begins interrogating John afterward. He asks John if Brian is the person who killed their group members, but John says it is the house, not Brian. The nervous and terrified John also clarifies that the house did something to Brian. However, Detective finds it hard to believe John's bullshit and asks another question about the reason why they entered the abandoned house. But John cannot give Detective a proper response anymore, since he is paralyzed with terror. Detective quickly leaves the holding room after getting no conclusive information from John. Later, he approaches a police officer and tells him to keep John in the holding room because he will need John to piece together the murders. Meanwhile, a psychologist receives a call from Detective. She gets a request to help him with the investigation regarding the crime scene at the house. Intrigued, the psychologist accepts the favor of talking to John and helping him reveal the incident inside the house. Once she arrives, Detective immediately accompanies the psychologist to the holding room and leads her with John. But before the psychologist begins, she takes a blanket first and covers John with it to help him calm down. The psychologist begins talking to John afterward. She carefully asks John to tell everything he remembers while she notes it. However, the psychologist sees John still in a state of panic due to the traumatic event, so she assures John that she will help him put all the events he remembers and figure out what happened to them. John feels relief because of the psychologist's words, causing him to speak and reveal everything he remembers inside the abandoned house. John tells the psychologist that Michelle and her friends have been doing ghost hunting for a long time. Afterward, he begins detailing everything that transpired during their time at the abandoned house. The film then transitions to the actual events of John and his friends traveling to an abandoned house. With their cameras in tow, Brian is the first to record the footage of their investigation. The first video contains Brian introducing his friends and a short interview with John about his vision of his mother. As Brian records him, John reveals that in his dream, his mother lives nearby the Livingstone house. It is a house owned by Martha Livingstone, the person who murdered her friends inside it during the late 80s. But aside from that, John also says that his mother is part of the incident because she is friends with Martha. Apparently, the group knows that the incident in the place happened after Martha and her friends did a séance. However, the group still decides to do it again to identify what triggers the spirits to get Martha's group killed. Afterward, the group goes to the abandoned house and brings the equipment they need for the documentary. Despite knowing the place is not open for visitors, the group still proceeds and prepares their ghost hunting gear for the séance. The group will try to summon the spirits to communicate with the victims, including John's mother. However, a sudden thought occurs in John's mind. He asks his friends what they will do if they summon Martha instead of her friends. Because of that, Ms. Psychic clarifies that they will only use good energies for summoning spirits and assures John that they will not call Martha. The group uses a crowbar to open the door. Once inside, John's nose suddenly bleeds, and Ms. Psychic eventually presumes that his sensitivity to changes in pressure causes it. Ms. Psychic also says nose bleeding usually happens when spirits are around during the activity. Due to that, the group congratulates John for effortlessly calling the spirits for their séance. A while later, the group begins setting up their ghost hunting gear. Meanwhile, Sam becomes suspicious of John getting continuous nosebleeds inside the house. Apparently, John is connected to the place because his mother was the sole survivor of the original murders. But John keeps the truth from telling his friends and only informs them that his mother was part of the incident. The night comes, and the group is almost finished setting up everything, including the last camera Michelle attaches to the wall for surveillance. Michelle grabs John's arms to get out of the room. Suddenly, a paranormal event begins, and the door shuts on its own. Due to that, Michelle screams out of fear despite John calming her down. Michelle attempts to record what happened, but Ms. Psychic eventually enters the room. Ms. Psychic is now very fascinated, and she pulls out her camera to take recordings. After that, Ms. Psychic starts filming the other door opening on its own. Michelle's body is touched as the spirit responds to Ms. Psychic's plea, letting Ms. Psychic and her friends know it is there. After that, Michelle and John check the living room when suddenly they see a jig doll moving on its own. Terrified, Michelle immediately contacts their friends, using the walkie-talkie to check the jig doll. The group arrives at the living room in no time. Afterward, Brian volunteers to check the jig doll and figures out that it is moving because there is something it wants to show the group. The group then watches the jig doll dance until it stops and points out the floor. So they immediately remove the rug on the floor and find a seal. Ms. Psychic makes the first move to start their séance with the seal, when suddenly they hear loud thuds outside the living room. Due to that, the group separates ways to find out who is the other person in the abandoned house aside from them. However, it turns out the person they are looking for is John's mother's spirit lurking around the place to frighten the shit out of them. Terrified, Michelle attempts to leave the abandoned house with John and Sam. But before they even reach the door, Sam stops them and talks to John. Sam reveals that he knows the sole survivor of Martha's murder is John's mother. He also tells John that he researched it. Because of that, Michelle convinces John to stay and agrees with Sam's suggestion that John must talk to his mother using the séance so his visions of her can finally end. Meanwhile, Ms. Psychic and Brian eventually feel the spirit of John's mother. On the other hand, Technician monitors the surveillance and is approached by Michelle and John, who enter the room. They give Technician an electromagnetic field detector to easily detect John's mother. Technician then uses it when suddenly the frame bursts into flame inside the room. Due to that, John immediately gets the fire extinguisher to cool the burning heat. This causes Michelle to get confused and ask John how he knows where the fire extinguisher is. On the other hand, Brian, Ms. Psychic, and Sam arrive in the room to check what happened. So Technician explains, and John eventually reveals that he is starting to have a vision again. John then tells the group that there is a woman behind Ms. Psychic, and she aggressively grabs Ms. Psychic's hair and pulls her out of the room. The group quickly follows Ms. Psychic to rescue her. Afterward, Ms. Psychic convinces the group to start their séance because the spirit is becoming aggressive. The group quickly assembles in the living room immediately. After that, they form a circle to surround the seal and begin performing the séance. But then, an uninspiring turn of events happens, because instead of summoning the victim's spirits, the group manages to unleash an evil from beyond the grave. It turns out John's vision occurs during the seance, and his mother appears and convinces him to let go of the bind. Due to that, the evil chooses Brian as its host, making him the murderer and then kill all of his friends. The scene then transitions to the present, where Brian is later found alive, but runs away from the police, ending up cornered in a store. Unfortunately, Brian is already possessed by evil and not his usual self anymore. His last mission is to kill the pregnant Michelle, who is still missing. Meanwhile, Detective radios the psychologist, who is still interrogating John about Brian. This causes John to hear the news, as the police radio is only on their table. In a rage, John grabs the police radio and shouts at Brian. He forces Brian to tell him where Michelle is, but Brian suddenly acts strangely, which causes John to almost go into cardiac arrest. Due to that, the psychologist screams for Detective on the police radio to stop Brian before he kills John. On the other hand, Detective quickly follows the psychologist's order and promptly shoots Brian. Detective then approaches Brian inside the store. He tries to let Brian talk and asks for Michelle's whereabouts, only to discover that Brian's tongue is removed. However, Detective gets shocked when Brian pulls the cross necklace around his neck before dying. This causes Detective to realize that Brian is giving hints about Michelle's location. Detective returns to the house and sees a box full of crosses, leading him to a hidden area where he finds Michelle. As the paramedics are rolling Michelle on the stretcher, Detective eventually discovers John's lifeless body dangling from a wall. At the same time, the psychologist learns that John killed everyone. The movie ends with the psychologist realizing that the person she interrogates is a demon possessing John's body. She tries to escape from the holding room to call for reinforcements, but the devil begins choking her. This causes the psychologist to struggle to speak up, while the devil reveals to her that John's mother was his vessel for his escape. Technically, the devil used John's mother to appear in John's vision and triggered him to go to the abandoned house with his friends. The lights suddenly turn on and off. As Detective opens the door to save the psychologist, the devil already vanishes into thin air. On the other hand, the paramedic unconsciously passes through the seal while wheeling Michelle out of the house. Due to that, a sinister figure moves in Michelle's belly upon getting into the ambulance, indicating that the baby will be the next demon's vessel. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.